They burned my orchard during a county fire ban and thought they'd won. 120 heritage apple trees, every single one planted by my late wife and me, gone overnight. I remember standing in that field of ash boots sinking into charcoal air, thick with diesel and burnt wood. Across the street, those $5 million McMansions gleamed untouched, their marble driveways still smelling like fresh money. 6 months later, those same houses were twisted rebar and blackened glass. Fire doesn't follow HOA rules, it just comes home. My name's Ezra Thornfield. I'm a retired firefighter from Oregon, a man who spent 3 decades putting out other people's flames only to have my own life set on fire by an HOA president with too much power and too little sense. My wife Sarah and I bought 3 acres back when Willowbrook Farms was still farmland. The soil was dark as chocolate cake, sticky and rich. You could feel it breathe when you dug into it. We planted heirloom apples, the kind you couldn't find in stores. Gravenstein, Arkansas, Black Espus Spitzenberg. We planted every single tree by hand, sweating through long summers dreaming of a small business and a quiet life. Then the developers came bulldozers, McMansions, and Karen Whitfield. Karen was the new HOA president, a real estate agent who saw herself as the queen of property values. Her husband Bradley sat on the city council, which meant she thought she was untouchable. She hated everything about my place. The pickup trucks during harvest, the scent of compost, the green industrial hose that didn't match her aesthetic. One day, she showed up at my fence, tennis whites brighter than my future, and said, "Maybe it's time you considered what's best for people who actually contribute." As if growing food wasn't contribution enough. I tried to ignore her, but Karen's kind doesn't stop. When ignored, they double down. The county issued its yearly fire ban standard for Oregon summers. Within 48 hours, Karen held an emergency HOA meeting, didn't invite me, and declared my orchard an imminent fire hazard. I got the notice in my mailbox, 72 hours to clear all vegetation within 50 feet of neighboring homes. The company listed was Precision Tree Service, Bradley's company, her husband's. Now I'd memorized fire codes over 30 years. This ordinance, 847B, she quoted, didn't exist for agricultural land. I drove to the county building, the kind of beige bureaucratic tomb where hope goes to die in triplicate. The clerk searched, frowning, no such ordinance. So I hired a lawyer, filed for an injunction, and the judge granted a temporary stop-work order. For the first time in weeks I could breathe. That peace lasted exactly 2 days. Mrs. Haven, my quiet neighbor, showed up at my fence one evening, hands shaking. "Ezra," she whispered, "Bradley's been on the phone with the judge, something about golf tomorrow morning." I laughed, thinking she was exaggerating. She wasn't. The next day, my injunction expired due to clerical error. 30-year courthouse veteran suddenly forgot how to read a calendar. That was my first real taste of corruption, and it burned worse than fire. So I went public. Called the local news, handed them every document I had. Retired firefighter battles corrupt HOA. The story blew up. Viewers loved it. For one glorious night, truth was louder than money. But Karen, she didn't like losing control. At dawn, chainsaws roared outside my window. I ran out in my robe and boots. 6 men in hard hats were cutting my trees under Karen's supervision. She stood there in a silk robe, sipping her $7 latte, smiling like she was hosting a garden party. Safety first. "Ezra," she called. "County orders." The foreman looked miserable, but orders are orders. By noon, the orchard was gone. Then, as if to twist the knife, they piled the debris and lit it on fire. During a fire ban, the smoke rolled across the sky, black and oily. I could hear the applewood popping and cracking, the same sound Sarah loved when we used to grill on fall nights. I just stood there helpless. For the first time in my life, I didn't know how to fight a fire. That night, I almost gave up. I sat on my porch, a beer sweating in my hand, staring at the glowing embers where my life used to be. Maybe Karen was right. Maybe I was just an old man clinging to the past, holding back progress. But then I saw one surviving stake blackened but still upright, sticking out of the ashes. Sarah had carved our initials into it the year we planted the orchard, and something inside me hardened. I hadn't spent 3 decades saving other people's homes to let mine be stolen. I started digging. The first break came from a land survey I ordered, cost me $800 I didn't have. The report showed Karen's crew had cut 15 feet into city-owned wetlands protected territory. Environmental fines $50 grand per tree. 12 trees destroyed. Do the math. I set up trail cameras hidden among the brush and caught Karen paying off a replacement surveyor to fix the measurements. Then I traced Precision Tree Service and found its parent company, Mountain Vista Holdings. Owner, Bradley Whitfield. So Karen had used HOA emergency funds to pay her husband's company to illegally cut trees on public land. I sent everything videos, coordinates, business records to the county prosecutor, the environmental agency, and a local reporter who loved a scandal. Within days, Karen hit back with a lawsuit claiming I'd filed frivolous complaints. $50,000 in damages. The headlines were surreal. HOA president sues firefighter over environmental claims. But the more she fought, the more she exposed herself. My insurance adjuster, Maria Santos, called me one morning. Ezra. She said someone filed smoke damage claims the same day your orchard burned. Turns out Karen had filed for insurance. Before the fire even happened. Fraud, plain and simple. Maria dug deeper and found years of identical claims across multiple neighborhoods, manufactured crises, Bradley's company swooping in insurance payouts following. A pattern of organized theft. And then came Mrs. Haven again, clutching a manila envelope like it might explode. Inside was a recording Karen threatening her. Sign this complaint against Ezra, or I'll double your property taxes. City assessors listen when I talk. My stomach turned. She'd been extorting neighbors for years. I cross-checked property sales, HOA filings, company names until my garage wall looked like a detective movie, red strings, maps, receipts. It all led to one conclusion: the Whitfields had built a fake HOA empire to steal homes. That realization hit me harder than any fire ever could. I wasn't the first. I was the last holdout in a long con. I drove to the county archives, a dusty basement where old records go to rot. After hours of digging through yellowed folders, I found it the original Willowbrook HOA incorporation papers. Signed by Karen Whitfield. 3 months before she bought her house. 17 signatures, 12 real properties. She'd forged the rest. Every fine, every order, every threat, completely illegal. I called Maria, then the FBI. Special Agent Rebecca Torres met me 2 days later, briefcase full of photos. Mr. Thornfield, she said, you've uncovered one of the largest residential fraud schemes in the state. They'd been investigating the Whitfields for years. My case gave them jurisdiction to take the whole operation down. The FBI wired my house. We set a trap. A week later, Karen sent me a settlement offer: sell my land for $1 and NDA leave Oregon. In exchange, they'd drop all lawsuits. The letter accused me of environmental destruction due to illegal agriculture. Her lawyer had basically written a confession. I called Karen. Got your offer, I said. Let's discuss terms. She agreed to meet at her house the next day. That morning, 3 police cars pulled into my driveway. Ezra Thornfield. You're under arrest for assault and battery, the sergeant said, looking like he hated every word. The charge: attacking Karen during an HOA meeting scheduled for 6 hours in the future. Time-traveling crimes impressive even for her. I spent half a day in a holding cell before Agent Torres stormed into the courtroom, slammed a federal badge on the table, and said, "He's a protected witness in an active investigation. Case dismissed." Karen had just crossed into federal obstruction. When I got home, Mrs. Haven texted Karen at City Hall, now voting to seize your land. I drove straight there with the FBI in tow. Inside the council chamber, Karen stood at the podium, voice trembling with fake authority. "This man represents a clear and present danger to our community," she declared. Torres hit record on her device. Then Karen said the fatal words, "We're protecting property values from people who don't belong in civilized neighborhoods." Silence. Cameras rolling. Racism, corruption, witness intimidation, all on tape. Then someone screamed. Fire. Outside. 5 of Karen's prized McMansions were burning roofs, collapsing smoke, clawing at the night sky. Irony doesn't even begin to cover it. Those houses had blocked hydrants, illegal wiring, no fire lanes. Her obsession with aesthetics had built a tinderbox. Firefighters I'd once trained were out there battling the inferno. Chief Rodriguez, my old partner, looked at me and muttered, "Ezra, this neighborhood was designed to burn." Karen just stood there, frozen, watching her empire turn to ash. Bradley tried to drag her away, but Agent Torres stepped forward, badge glinting in the firelight. Karen Whitfield, you're under arrest for racketeering, insurance fraud, and civil rights violations. The handcuffs clicked loud as gunshots. I looked at her calm for the first time in months and said, "Turns out the real fire hazard was you." That's where the story ends, at least the part worth telling. The orchard's gone, but the soil's still rich. Maybe that's the thing about fire, it destroys what's dead, but it feeds what's alive. You can burn the trees, but you can't burn the roots of truth.